Hello, welcome back. I'm going to make some mince pies today, and I'm going to use the mincemeat that I made, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago maybe. And if you want to see the recipe for that, click here. And then you can make your own too. It really is delicious. So this pastry is a bit special because it has orange zest in it. And it makes quite a lot, so you'll have some for the freezer and some to eat whenever you want them. So, here we go. Now for this I'm going to use the food processor, but if you haven't got one, or if you want to do it by hand, you can just do it by the normal rubbing in method in a mixing bowl. But I have got, to start with, 350 grams, which is 12 ounces of plain flour. That goes into the food processor. And to that, I'm going to add, it sounds like a lot, but don't worry, 250 grams of unsalted butter. It's a whole block of butter, and I've cut it up into rectangular pieces, and then that goes in as well. There we are. And this is quite a rich pastry, but I promise you it really is lovely. To that I'm going to add 50 grams of caster sugar, and then we're simply going to pulse it in the food processor. I better turn it on first. So it's going to be a bit noisy. Here we go. And what you're looking for is for the butter to be much, much smaller pieces. The colour changes to a sort of a creamy yellow, and you can see we've lost all those great big lumps. To that we now add the zest of 2 oranges, and I've used my zester, which I just find quicker than grating on the edge of a grater, and it takes off just the right amount. So in goes the zest of 2 oranges. And then we're going to add some egg. And this is a little bit variable. It depends on your flour and the temperature of your kitchen and your butter as to how much of this egg mixture you'll need. So beat 2 together. And pour in about half of it to begin with. It's always difficult with eggs because they carry on running. And then mix again, and obviously we're aiming for a dough that begins to stick together, but we don't want it to be too sticky. So here we go. I need to give that a stir. And actually I think that's enough. That's beginning to stick together. It's not too sticky, but if I can show you. You see it's starting to stick together, it's making big clumps, so that's about right. I'm just going to clear the mess away and then I'll get that out of the food processor. The next thing to do is get the blade out. Never go anywhere near that with your fingers, will you? And just clean that off. And then we're going to tip this onto the work surface. It looks a bit unpromising at the moment, don't worry. What we've got are pockets of eggy patches that are a bit wet because of the egg, and patches that are a bit dry. So we're going to just simply bring that together, and that now begins to look a bit more like pastry. Right, if it's very soft at this stage, you can wrap it in cling film, put it in the fridge and let it just cool down a little bit so it's easier to roll out. But whether you do that or not, I would recommend that you cut it in half at this point, because that's a lot of pastry to be rolling at any one time. So we'll have some flour. And I tend to put it cut side down because that makes sure that it's not too sticky. And then we're going to start to roll it out. I've got the oven onto number 6 to cook some of these, but the others I will put in the freezer because they freeze ever so well. And if you do freeze them, let them thaw before you cook them. Now you'll need some patty tins. Those are not as deep as muffin tins. And you need your cutters ready. And you'll need a cutter for the bottom, which is bigger than the outside edge of the dip in the tin. And then you can use something interesting for the top. So you could use a snowflake, or a star, or a little tree, or you can do a collection of little stars that go all the way around the edge. So it's up to you what you do with the tops of your mince pies, but this is where you can be a little bit more imaginative. And if you've got a little person working with you, that's where they can have a bit of fun. So we're going to roll this until it's quite thin, and it may get too big to move, so we'll have to maybe just be careful it doesn't stick, and then, not that I approve of it, we may have to roll sideways. We'll see how it goes. So that's about the right thickness. I suppose it's about as thick as a pound coin, a little bit thinner perhaps than a pound coin. And this is where we start cutting our bases. And I tend to cut a base and then a top, and then I know that I've got the right number of tops for bases, if you get my drift. So in one hand the base and in the other hand the top. Cut them as closely together as you can, so that you get as many out. The first time you roll this is going to make the best mince pies, because subsequent rollings will make it a little bit tougher. Now, when you've cut them, you can use a spatula to get them off the work surface, and then just press them into the tin. And then here's our mincemeat. This is the stuff I made about a month ago. I've taken it out of the big jar because I can't reach down there with the spoon. I've put some in a mixing bowl, and you can fill these quite full because this doesn't have a huge amount of sugary syrup that will run. So fill it quite full, and then on goes your little top. Okay, and you keep going until you've used all of this. And then you don't screw this up until you've rolled the second half, and you screw all the remnants up together at the end. Right, well that's 2 trays full. There's a little bit left. I might make a little pasty with that and serve that to somebody for their pudding tonight. I'm going to cook 1 tray of these, and I'm going to put the other tray in the freezer. So they go in at gas mark 6 for 15 minutes, and they'll be very, very, very hot when they come out, so don't ever attempt to eat them straight away. So lots of cling film on the tray for the freezer, and the other ones straight in the oven. If you find that you've got more mincemeat that you can use, don't forget you can put it into other things. You can put it into your crumbles. And there's another bonus recipe coming up for little mincemeat Eccles cakes, so think about that too. Alright, gas mark 6, 15 minutes. There we are, done, very, very hot. And they won't come out of the tin until they've cooled down, because they're so short, they haven't been handled a lot, so the gluten strands are very short. They would break, so I'm going to leave them to cool. Then I shall dust them with my little tea strainer thing with icing sugar, and they'll be ready. Gorgeous. Have a go, enjoy.